In 1921, at the University of Toronto, Dr. Frederick Banting, a young surgeon, teamed up with medical student Charles Best to tackle type 1 diabetes, a death sentence at the time. Patients wasted away, their bodies unable to use glucose due to insulin deficiency, leading to skyrocketing blood sugar and ketoacidosis. Banting had a hunch the pancreas held a substance that regulated glucose. They extracted insulin from dog pancreases, injecting it into diabetic dogs and seeing blood sugar plummet. In 1922, they treated 14-year-old Leonard Thompson, a boy near death from diabetes. After insulin shots, he gained weight, his energy returned, and he lived for years, a miracle. This discovery, earning a Nobel Prize in 1923, showed how insulin orchestrates carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism, preventing the chaos of diabetes. Diabetes and insulin resistance. One type 2 diabetes reversal. Chris Gibson, a British athlete, reversed his type 2 diabetes through diet and exercise, showcasing the impact of lifestyle changes on insulin sensitivity. 2. The discovery of insulin. Frederick Banting and Charles Best's discovery of insulin in the 1920s revolutionized the treatment of diabetes, highlighting the critical role of insulin in glucose metabolism. Diabetic coma in history before insulin. In the early 1900s, patients with type 1 diabetes often slipped into diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA, described as having fruity-smelling breath, rapid breathing, and coma. Hospitals could do little but restrict food, essentially starvation therapy, until insulin arrived in 1922. This story shows the deadly consequences of insulin deficiency. Shipwreck survivors and starvation metabolism. Famous shipwreck stories like the crew of the Essex, inspiration for Moby Dick, show how humans survive weeks at sea. Survivors relied on fat reserves and muscle protein breakdown. Some developed ketosis, weakness, and cognitive decline. This is a dramatic, real-world case of prolonged starvation metabolism. Marathon runners hitting the wall. Long-distance runners often describe a moment around mile 20 when they hit the wall. This happens when glycogen stores are depleted and the body switches to fatty acid metabolism, which is slower. Elite athletes train to increase fat utilization and delay glycogen depletion. This is a vivid, real-life example of the shift from glycogenolysis to fatty acid fuel. Steve Jobs and the ketogenic diet in cancer. Apple's co-founder Steve Jobs famously experimented with extreme diets, including fasting and fruitarian regimens, while battling pancreatic cancer. Although not medically recommended, his story brought public attention to ketogenic diets and the role of metabolism in disease. This shows public interest in metabolic pathways, though in this case, diet could not alter cancer progression. Metabolic syndrome. Harvard Health reports that metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions including insulin resistance, obesity, and hypertension, is on the rise. It's a modern epidemic linked to lifestyle and diet, and it underscores the importance of metabolic coordination in preventing chronic disease and the urgent need for public health interventions. The starvation experiments, the Minnesota Starvation Study, 1944-1945. During World War II, scientists at the University of Minnesota studied what happens during prolonged fasting and starvation. 36 healthy men volunteered to eat only about 1,500 calories per day for 6 months. As a result, they lost around 25% of their body weight, their metabolism slowed, and they developed psychological symptoms like depression and food obsession. When refed, their bodies prioritize fat storage first, showing how metabolic adaptation works in humans. This experiment demonstrates the shift from fasting to starvation, from glycogen use to gluconeogenesis to ketone production. Caring for rare. Families facing metabolic disorders. Nutritia's podcast Caring for Rare features families dealing with conditions like maple syrup urine disease, MSUD, and homocystinuria, HCU. These stories reveal the complexity of managing rare metabolic diseases and how metabolic pathways, when disrupted, affect every aspect of life. Chris Gibson, a British athlete, reversed his type 2 diabetes through diet and exercise, showcasing the impact of lifestyle changes on insulin sensitivity. The traditional Inuit diet, high in fat and low in carbohydrates, has been studied for its impact on metabolic health, illustrating the adaptability of human metabolism to different dietary patterns. The story of Nick Jonas, who publicly discussed his struggles with metabolic syndrome, highlights the importance of addressing insulin resistance and metabolic health. The stories of wartime fasting, extreme diets, and athletic endurance all highlight one thing: our bodies are remarkably adaptable, constantly shifting how they use and store energy. But what exactly coordinates these changes? The answer lies in metabolic interrelationships, the complex communication between organs like the liver, muscle, fat, and brain. Hormones like insulin and glucagon act as messengers, telling tissues when to store energy, when to release it, and how to keep blood sugar balanced. For example, during fasting, the liver produces glucose for the brain, muscles release amino acids, and fat cells supply fatty acids for energy. This coordination is what allows us to survive periods of scarcity, recover after exercise, and respond to illness or stress. Understanding these metabolic interrelationships is key to managing health, preventing disease, and optimizing performance. Before insulin's discovery, children with type 1 diabetes would waste away and die within months. Frederick Banting and Charles Best extracted insulin from dogs and treated a 14-year-old boy, Leonard Thompson, in 1922. He went from near death to regaining strength. Insulin was called a miracle. Famous shipwreck stories, like the crew of the Essex, inspiration for Moby Dick, show how humans survive weeks at sea. Survivors relied on fat reserves and muscle protein breakdown. Some developed ketosis, weakness, and cognitive decline. Ever wondered how your body knows when to burn fat, save muscle, or make glucose out of thin air? Whether you're fasting overnight or managing diabetes, your metabolism is constantly adapting. Today on Medicine Health 360, we're diving into the fascinating world of metabolic interrelationships and how they shape your health every single day. Metabolic interrelationships refer to the coordination between organs like the liver, muscle, adipose tissue, and brain to maintain energy balance and homeostasis. Think of it as a biochemical symphony. Each tissue plays its part, and hormones like insulin and glucagon conduct the orchestra. For example, the glucose-alanine cycle allows muscle to offload nitrogen while helping the liver make glucose, and the Cori cycle recycles lactate from muscle back into glucose. These cycles are essential during exercise, fasting, and stress. Let's walk through what happens when you skip a meal or fast overnight. Initial phase 0 to 4 hours. Your body taps into glycogen stores in the liver and muscle. Glucose is released to keep your brain and red blood cells fueled. Post-absorptive phase 4 to 24 hours. As glycogen runs low, the liver kicks into gluconeogenesis, making glucose from lactate, glycerol, and amino acids. Meanwhile, adipose tissue ramps up lipolysis, releasing fatty acids for energy. This hormonal shift ensures your brain gets glucose while sparing muscle protein, at least initially. Now, let's look at what happens when insulin is deficient or the body becomes resistant to it, like in diabetes. Carbohydrate metabolism, glucose uptake drops, gluconeogenesis increases, and blood sugar rises, leading to hyperglycemia and dehydration. Fat metabolism. Lipolysis accelerates, flooding the liver with fatty acids. These are converted into ketones, which can lead to ketoacidosis in type 1 diabetes. Protein metabolism. Muscle breaks down to supply amino acids for gluconeogenesis, causing muscle wasting. To understand how metabolic dysfunction impacts overall health, what are metabolism and metabolic health, and how do they offer a great overview of the dangers of disrupted metabolism. Throughout history, real people and dramatic moments have shaped our understanding of metabolism. From groundbreaking discoveries in the lab to patients overcoming rare diseases, to public figures battling metabolic challenges, these stories reveal the power and complexity of the human body. We've witnessed scientists discover life-saving hormones, athletes and celebrities transform their health, and families navigate the challenges of rare metabolic disorders. Each story is a testament to resilience, innovation, and the vital role of metabolic flexibility. In the next chapters, we'll uncover the science behind these remarkable journeys, exploring how metabolism adapts, protects, and sometimes fails us. The secrets of metabolic health are about to be revealed. And this isn't just theory. Metabolic health affects everything from heart disease to inflammation. For example, beyond LDL, new insights into metabolic health and heart explores how metabolism connects to cardiovascular risk. Even inflammation is tied to metabolism. Cellular metabolism, a rheostat of inflammatory capacity, and dives into how metabolic states influence immune responses. Want to go deeper? Inflammation and metabolic health, Dr. Taylor Sittler and Ben discusses how inflammation and insulin resistance are intertwined. And what is metabolic health? A doctor's complete guide breaks down the metrics that define metabolic health. Thanks for watching Medicine Health 360. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe, and share with anyone curious about how their body fuels itself. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the science of health and disease.